But the Democrats don't care. They don't care. They just want to use you, Mr. Cohen. You're their patsy today. They got to find somebody, somewhere, to say something so they can try to remove the president from office.
Now, I don't know if everybody saw the hearing yesterday with convicted felon Michael Cohen before the House Oversight Committee, but we have another Spartacus moment by Jim Jordan, the representative from Ohio, Republican representative. And I find it very interesting how we got to this point. And Jim Jordan actually makes it a point to continuously point out that the entire purpose of this hearing is to begin the Democrats' first steps towards impeachment. As you'll see on your screen right now, the article, we're not going to read the whole thing. There's just like 2-3 paragraphs I want to read here at National Review, written by Jack Crow. And he points out exactly what Jim Jordan was pointing out. And then we'll see Jim Jordan's Spartacus moment, which was awesome. I mean, how did Al Franken say it? My leg was tingling while he was speaking. For those you don't know, Al Franken, former senator, he said that when President Obama gave a speech one time because President Obama was the Messiah. So, anywho, now what I'd like to do is first a little background story. Now that the Democrats have taken the House, they did not take the Senate, but they took the House for the midterm elections. All these investigations now begin. You have Adam Schiff, that retard, doing his thing. Now you have Elijah Cummings, that retard, doing his thing now. And Elijah Cummings, who's now the chairman of this committee, his first hearing is with Michael Cohen. What you must understand here is the way this process works. Number one, Michael Cohen is, when he gets in, sits down, he's to go ahead and give a statement. Now, he's supposed to give that statement to all the committee members 24 hours in advance so that they can review it and they know what they're going to talk about. But in addition to, they also went ahead and restricted what the representatives, what kind of questions they can actually ask of Michael Cohen. Now, the whole point in this was to look into the still investigation going on of Russian collusion with the Trump campaign, and yet they were not allowed to ask questions about Russian collusion. All the questions they were allowed to ask were in relation to anything to bash President Trump's character. That is it. And of course, that's what we got. We got Michael Cohen calling him a racist, a con man, that kind of stuff. And that's all we got out of this. But Jim Jordan, being the ranking member, so he's the number 2 because he's in the minority party, the Republicans, he gets to give a statement, his opening statement after the chairman gives his. And Jim Jordan's opening statement, he points out all of these little issues and how this hearing is definitely a farce. All it is a character assassination of the president. And he also points out the puppet strings and the puppet master, or masters, behind this hearing. Come to find out, you'll see the man sitting right behind Michael Cohen on his right side, which is our left side looking at the screen, as Lanny Davis. Lanny Davis. Does that name ring a bell? Lanny Davis, the Clinton loyalist, the Democrat loyalist. He's a Democrat attorney. He's done everything sleazy for the Clintons and many, many more. We won't get into all of that. Maybe I'll make a video one day about him. But he's the one that put it together. And Jim Jordan even points out, we know this because he told everybody. I put all this together. It took me 2 months to do this, and that. This is all you're allowed to ask. It's all restricted. So he's controlling this committee through Representative Elijah Cummings. Enough said there. Now that this investigation is going on, which still isn't really clear what kind of investigation this really is through this committee, because all it was character assassination. You weren't even allowed to ask about Russian collusion. Why are we even having the committee, I say to you? Now, let's move forward. Jim Jordan, Cohen hearing, first step in Dems' crazy impeachment plans, written by Jack Crow. Thank you, Jack Crow. Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio, ranking Republican on the House Oversight Committee, said Wednesday evening that Democrats called Michael Cohen to testify before the panel in order to set the stage for President Trump's impeachment. Quote, I do not think you can believe much of what this guy says. What I do think was going on today is that this was the first step in the Democrats' crazy impeachment plans, end quote, Jordan said during an appearance on Fox News' special report. Now, this is important, and I highlighted it. Jordan's comments came hours after Cohen publicly disparaged his former boss as a racist, a con man, and a cheat during his public testimony before Congress. Though Cohen accuses Trump of engaging in illicit acts while in office during the reimbursement of hush money payments made during the campaign for former mistresses, the former attorney admitted did not have knowledge of any collusion between Trump campaign and Russia. And I might add that he also speculated that he had his suspicions, though. Jordan and fellow Republicans on the Oversight Committee spent the hearing impugning Cohen's credibility, frequently raising the fact that he previously lied to Congress under oath about the timing of plans to build a Moscow Trump Tower when he testified in August. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about this for a second. So, as Jordan mentioned, it was all about character assassination here. Cohen called the president a racist, a con man, a cheat, and he even called for illicit acts while the president was in office for the reimbursements of the hush money that Cohen paid out to porn star Stormy Daniels and some other lady. I don't know. Now, that being said, it's still not a campaign finance law that was violated by paying that hush money. He was protecting himself. He did not pay it out of any campaign funds. So there is no violation here. But let's enlighten the Democrats. Okay, let's go ahead and say, sure, we could actually consider that a campaign finance law. The problem with that, what's the consequence for violating a campaign finance law? You pay a fee. The funny part is, almost everybody does it in government. All elected officials violate campaign finance laws. Why don't we ever hear about them? Well, because everybody does it. And because they just square up, they settle with a quick little fee, and they move on with their life. They screw up. It's not always intentional, and sure, it probably is intentional sometimes too. But it's commonplace. So if this is what they've got to begin their impeachment with President Trump, they got an uphill battle. I will say that. Moreover, let me just add this in there. You can impeach him all day you want because you have the majority in the House. You still can't remove the president. That lies with the Senate, and I don't see that happening. Let's go ahead and listen to Jim Jordan's Spartacus moment.
Mr. Jordan is recognized for his opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, here we go. Here we go. Your first big hearing, your first announced witness, Michael Cohen. I want everyone in this room to think about this. The first announced witness for the 116th Congress is a guy who is going to prison in 2 months for lying to Congress. Mr. Chairman, your chairmanship will always be identified with this hearing. And we all need to understand what this is. This is the Michael Cohen hearing presented by Lanny Davis. That's right. Lanny Davis choreographed the whole darn thing. The Clintons' best friend, loyalist, operative, Lanny Davis put this all together. You know how we know? He told our staff. He told the committee staff. He said the hearing was his idea. He selected this committee. He had to talk Michael Cohen into coming. And most importantly, he had to persuade the chairman to actually have it. He told us it took 2 months to get that job done. But here we are. He talked him into it. This might be the first time someone convicted of lying to Congress has appeared again so quickly in front of Congress. Certainly, it's the first time a convicted perjurer has been brought back to be a star witness in a hearing. And there's a reason this is the first, because no other committee would do it. Think about this. With Mr. Cohen here, this committee, we got lots of lawyers on this committee. This committee is actually encouraging a witness to violate attorney-client privilege. Mr. Chairman, when we legitimize dishonesty, we delegitimize this institution. We're supposed to pursue the truth, but you have stacked the deck against the truth. We're only allowed to ask certain questions. Even with that amendment you just told us about, well, Russia's now on the table. You initially told us we can't ask questions about the special counsel, can't ask questions about the Southern District of New York, can't ask questions about Russia. Nope. Nope. Only subjects we can talk about are ones you think are going to be harmful to the President of the United States. And the answers to those questions are going to come from a guy who can't be trusted. Here's what the U.S. Attorney said about Mr. Cohen. While Mr. Cohen enjoyed a privileged life, his desire for ever greater wealth and influence precipitated an extensive course of criminal conduct. Mr. Cohen committed four distinct federal crimes over a period of several years. He was motivated to do so by personal greed and repeatedly used his power and influence for deceptive ends. But the Democrats don't care. They don't care. They just want to use you, Mr. Cohen. You're their patsy today. They got to find somebody, somewhere, to say something so they can try to remove the president from office. Because Tom Steyer told him to. Tom Steyer, last week, organized a town hall. Guess where? Chairman Nadler's district in Manhattan. 2 nights ago, Tom Steyer organized a town hall. Guess where? Chairman Cummings' district in Baltimore. The best they can find to start this process, Michael Cohen. Fraudster, a cheat, convicted felon, and in 2 months a federal inmate. Well, actually, they didn't find him. Laney Davis found him. I'll say one thing about the Democrats. They stick to the playbook. Remember how all this started. The Clinton campaign hired Perkins Coie law firm, who hired Glenn Simpson, who hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who put together the fake dossier that the FBI used to go get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. But when that whole scheme failed and the American people said, we're going to make Donald Trump president, they said, we got to do something else. So now, Clinton loyalist, Clinton operative Laney Davis has persuaded the chairman of the Oversight Committee to give a convicted felon a forum to tell stories and lie about the President of the United States so they can all start their impeachment process. Mr. Chairman, we are better than this. We are better than this. I yield back.
Well, there you have it. Jim Jordan pointing out what a farce this hearing is with convicted felon Michael Cohen. Now remember, Michael Cohen has lost all credibility. All of it. He pled guilty to not only some crimes that he actually committed a while back, but he also pleaded guilty to 2 crimes that actually didn't even happen. So I try to use some empathy and put myself in this guy's shoes, and I think he must have been under a lot of pressure, a massive amount of pressure that was coming from the FBI, the Mueller team, prosecutors, and all that jazz. He pleaded guilty to 2 charges of campaign finance violations that didn't even happen. I just talked about it a minute ago. I know I didn't go into depth, but they actually didn't happen, and yet he still pled guilty to them, and he's getting 3 years. He rolled over, and now he's not facing 10 years or whatever it may be. Would I do the same thing in his position? I don't know. It's hard to really say. I'd like to say, of course I wouldn't. But when you're really in somebody's shoes like that, there's no telling what you would do. You have a family. Do you really want to go to prison for longer? And furthermore, if he pleads guilty, or if he's convicted for 3 years, sentenced for 3 years, he's going to do worst case scenario 85% of that. And I don't even think he'll do that much. I think he'll do a few months, like 9 months, and go home, to be honest with you. And, of course, he's going to go to some high-class prison and all that jazz where they play tennis all day. But, that's okay. Then you have Bob Mueller. That witch hunt, which obviously has turned into a witch hunt. I mean, they're just attacking everybody, going through their past and charging them. Now, the funny thing about Bob Mueller was, this is just what I believe. Remember, let me say it again. This is just what I believe. Now, there are a lot of things I can point to help prove what I believe, but we won't get into all that. But I think Bob Mueller wasn't originally brought in to hold this witch hunt against Trump in his campaign. I believe he was brought in to actually cover up the real issue, the actual collusion that was going on through the Clinton campaign, and the FBI, the top of the FBI spying on the Trump campaign and all that stuff, and the Obama administration, what they were doing to rig this election for Hillary Clinton. And when it fell through, they had to immediately do something. So I believe, using Rod Rosenstein, who's part of them. We just found that out for sure. There's no doubt now because of McCabe and his testimony was part of it. I think they brought him in to cover it up. Over time, it's transformed into a witch hunt to where they've tried to find stuff on Trump, but they haven't found anything on Trump. And so you have all these other people that were around President Trump being prosecuted, and some of them for some very frivolous stuff. Like, look at General Michael Flynn. General Michael Flynn was originally brought in. They said, look, he was advised, you don't need a lawyer, you don't need all that. We're just going to sit down and talk. We just need a few questions answered. No big deal. I would do the same. If the feds came to me and said, look, man, I just need you to come talk to me. Come on in. Let's sit down. I got a few questions I need to clear up real quick. No big deal. I wouldn't even get in a lawyer, most likely. And I just come in and talk with them so I can help, whatever they need to know, which anybody should. So he sits down. They ask him a few questions with regard to that meeting with the Russian diplomat, and they trip him up on a frivolous lie. He misstated something, and they got him. Then they charge him with lying to the FBI. Of course, he doesn't have the money to fight this crap, nor does he have the inclination, probably. So what does he do? He pleads out to lying. The FBI probably won't get any time, right? That's what he's thinking at the time. Probably won't get any time. It'll just, get a felony on my record and move on with my life. Maybe it's time to retire anyways. And sure enough, they hit this guy hard, trying to get him to roll and say something negative about President Trump, anything to take President Trump down. Look at Manafort, Paul Manafort. I know what you're thinking. Oh, they reamed him. They got him. And then what'd they do with Michael Flynn after charging him with lying? They leak it to the media, and they say, look, Russian collusion. They're cracking down on them all. Russian collusion. No, they tripped him up, got him in a lie. But the media would have you believe different. Look at Paul Manafort. Oh my goodness, he's been charged in Alexandria, Virginia, and D.C. I mean, the guy's he's going away for the rest of his life. I mean, he's done. Russian collusion, right? Nope, no Russian collusion. We'll get him for tax evasion, lying about loans, that kind of stuff, which is federal felony, loans from the bank. And we'll dress it up as Russian collusion. And on and on and on and on, and has gone with everybody else, which we won't go through everybody. But you guys get the point. Now, that's just my theory. I think that he was originally brought in to cover it up with all the FISA warrant abuse and all that jazz and what was going on with the Hillary campaign and the dossier, the fake unverified dossier that they used for to pull the FISA warrant, like you heard Representative Jim Jordan just say a few minutes ago. And then it led to the witch hunt. So that's what I truly believe. Either way, Michael Cohen, he is a scumbag. He's the sleaziest of sleazeballs. I don't like him. Do I think he's telling the truth? I don't know. Personally, it doesn't matter. He's not credible at this point. It does not matter. And if that's all they've got is the campaign finance laws, like I said, they're not actual violations, but even if they were, if that's all they've got, you can't impeach him. Doesn't matter. Senate won't remove him anyways. And even if you did impeach him, again, the Senate wouldn't remove him. So to wrap this up, I think that the hearing with this Senate Oversight Committee was nothing but a continual character assassination of our president. And that's all it was. They couldn't even ask questions about Russian collusion. So I don't even know what the actual investigation is that this committee is holding. Jim Jordan doesn't even know. It's just character assassination. There's nothing there. You can't even prove anything. This is Weasel saying, good day.